Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Haskin, here with a fan-based podcast. It's endorsed by the band, which is pretty cool. And we have a great show for you today. We're here to talk about the song Circle of Hands from the Demons and Wizards album. It is Monday. Happy Monday to you guys. And we're starting off a new week, but we're still on season 4. Got a little ways to go on this fantastic album before we move on to the Magician's Birthday. And, just because that's the basic title of the show, I'm not stopping after that album. We're doing all of them, even the ones they haven't made yet. They'll have more out by the time that we get there. And I'm looking forward to hearing what they're working on now. I have read that there is a little bit of a potential delay as far as recording the new album. Of course, due to COVID and travel restrictions, they don't all live in the same city together. So it's a matter of being able to get to the studio location where they're going to record, as well as, the studio has to be able to take all the precautions. The engineer has to be there, all the people that help them with the setup and the assistants and all that thing. So it's, we'll see what happens, but I'm not sure when the recording is actually going to happen now. Hopefully it's going to work out and it'll still be on schedule. But from what I've heard, they're still in lockdown over there in the UK. Here in America, we're just doing whatever. So hopefully by the time that they get to that point, the restrictions will be lifted and things will be much better over there and they can still record. We'll see as time unfolds. But before we get into the show, of course, it's Monday, and I have some thanks that I want to give, as I tend to do those on Monday. Since, I would love to do them every show, but I think if you're somebody who is binge listening to the show, or if you're listening to it even in real time, every day that it comes out, because it comes out 4 days a week, it's probably a little much to hear that over and over again. So Monday is Thanks Day, and I'm going to get to that. But first, I actually want to talk about something else. Phil Lanzon, the keyboard player and one of the songwriters for Uriah Heep, has a new book coming out later this month, and it is called Snowdrop Diamonds, and that is the second in the trilogy he's doing of The Evil with 1,000 Faces. Sounds very ominous. I like that. I'm really looking forward to finding some time to read the first one. I haven't had a chance to dig into it, so I don't really know what they're about. But I would be very curious to see what he's like as an author, as I know him as a very talented songwriter and musician. I really like his solo work. I still have to check out the newest album. But what I've heard so far, I really like. A very talented guy and very tall from what it seems. So look for that. I've added a link to the main Uriah Heep podcast page. So if you go to the website, scotthaskin.com, SCOTTHASKIN.com, and you scroll down, there is the link to the 50th anniversary album, and then the links to Phil's books. And then below that, all the individual seasons, I guess you would call them, of the show. And then, I'm just adding to that as I get closer to releasing those episodes. So that's just an ongoing thing. And then, of course, below that are some other links that might be interesting to you guys. So check that out. But yeah, check out Phil's book. And, the new one's not out yet. So that gives you a chance to get and read the first one, because obviously you don't want to jump into trilogy in the middle of the road. That would just be really weird to have no clue what's going on in the story. So don't do that. Now, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons. We have 4 very generous people that have taken the time and care enough about the show to throw some money our way to help cover the production costs and contests and things that we do. We did have a winner for our Demons and Wizards contest. Congratulations. So that CD is well on its way to our winner. And the answer to the trivia question for Easy Livin', what do most popular hit, rock and roll tunes have that this song does not have? And that is a solo. There is no solo in the song whatsoever. It's such a short song, and it goes so fast that you don't even realize that it's not there. In fact, it wasn't until I started doing this show that it just dawned on me, wait a minute, there's no solo in this. Why is there no solo? Well, because it's a short song. It's in and out. It's radio friendly, but it's just driving all the way through. And maybe that they felt a solo would have taken away from it. I'm not sure. But in any case, there isn't one. And so that was the trivia question. So for those of you who entered, thank you very much. Our winner hopefully will be very happy with his Conquest CD, which is well on its way now to his location. The other contest that no one entered on the Salisbury episode, I want to let you know that, so what I did was there was a song that I wrote that was inspired by a song on the Salisbury album, just the main riff of the song. And it was very apparent. You could hear it right from the beginning. The song that I wrote was called Here to Stay. And it was about a time that I lived in a haunted house, actually a couple of them. And the song that it was inspired by was actually the song of Salisbury, one of the keyboard riffs in Salisbury. I was just kind of playing around one day, came up with the song, and then realized it was very similar to what Ken Hensley's playing during a part of that song. But I loved it. I kept it. It wasn't a ripoff. It was an inspiration. But Uriah Heep, if I owe you any money, I think that song has made nothing. So if I owe you any money, let me know. Now, to get back to our patrons, we have those of you who have given $3 a month. We have Peter Voss, Goran Eriksson, and Frank Thielgaard Mortensen, who also is a patron of the Deep Purple podcast as well. And if you guys haven't checked out the newest edition of the Deep Purple podcast, it came out last night. They had me on, and I was very honored to come back for this is my third time on the show. And we talked about the crossovers between Deep Purple and Uriah Heep. I will have that link in the show notes as well. Such great guys. I had such a good time with them. And then, of course, on Thursday's episode, Easy Livin', one of the co-hosts, John Matola, came on to co-host the Uriah Heep podcast. So it was a really good time. I love working with those guys. We toss ideas and stuff back and forth all the time. And they're great guys to hang out with. So we're going to have to get Nate on the show here pretty soon as our schedules and all that will allow. And so those are our $3 tier, folks. And then at the $1 tier, the Breathless Airtight Gravesite. Thank you guys, all of you, for your donations. Every little bit helps. And it means a lot to me that the show means enough to you that you would want to make that commitment. It's really something that, this only started a short few months ago, and just from scratch, from an idea, I happened to be able to secure an interview with Mick Box, pitched the idea to him. He loved it. And it just sprung in all directions from there. And to have their support has really meant a great deal to me. So thank you guys. I also want to thank everybody who has left a review or a rating, especially on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, where I can see them. I know that's kind of one of the biggest outlets for podcasts. So the great thing about them being there is that it helps the show get more recognition. More people will see it, and hopefully more people will say, oh, I want to check that out. That looks like an interesting thing, and I want to see what it's all about. Or, oh my God, I love Uriah Heep. I can't believe there's a podcast. I have to listen. And just ran into a couple of people yesterday that was the case while I was out shopping, and really cool. So, it's great to be able to bring this music to you guys. And, all I'm really doing is just sharing my feelings and thoughts as I'm listening to the song. Some of them are thoughts that I've been having since the first time I've heard the song, and other times are things that, wow, I never noticed that before. That was pretty cool. So it's really kind of all over the place. And but I really am grateful to have a chance to give you my thoughts on the show, share the music with you, and helping people to become a fan of the band that haven't had the opportunity or just haven't given them a chance has been probably my favorite part of the whole thing. It really has. So thank you guys for your donations. There are some other people that have helped along the way. My graphic artist, Scott Ladzinski, did just a beautiful job on the logo. I absolutely love it. I'll have to get links up at some point, but I do have shirts and mugs that will be available shortly. Also, my friends at Audionamics, who I will do not a single podcast without. They really help the sound of the show as far as the dialogue goes. Any computer fans, the airplanes, people playing outside, whatever, dogs barking. They help me get all of that out of the audio very easily. And it's an amazing program that they've written called Instant Dialogue Cleaner. And also my friend Dave White, who is the director of social media for Uriah Heep, He shares all the, all the episodes when they come out. He's been very helpful with, just support and information, and he's a really good guy. So thank you also, Dave, for all the work that you have done, and for everyone who has shared posts. I see that the posts that I put in the Uriah Heep fan page, the posts that Dave puts on the Uriah Heep sites, and also, like Twitter and Facebook group, and then, my Facebook group and Twitter. I really appreciate everybody who shares that, because you're helping us reach people, and that's what it's all about. If people aren't listening, what's the point of having a show? But I am very happy to say, statistically, when I look at the stats coming in, we're reaching a lot of people, and that really makes me happy. So thank you guys very much. Also, I've got to thank my brothers at the Deep Dive Podcast Network. Let's start with Nate and John at the Deep Purple Podcast. Again, check out that link in the show notes, and that'll be on the website as well. Great guys. And, on each episode show notes, I've got the links to all of the, all of the Deep Dive Podcast guys. So check out any of their shows. They're all absolutely wonderful. The Simple Man at Skinnerd Reconsidered. We also have Terry T-Bone Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts The Other Side. His new show started last week. This episode comes out on Monday. I think it's Mondays that his show is going to come out. But either way, check for that. I found it on Apple Podcasts, I think was where I listened to it. So looking forward to checking out episode 2. The first one was just fantastic, blew me out of the water. Rye at Sabbath Bloody Podcast. And he is now beyond all of the Black Sabbath songs and is working his way through Ozzy Osbourne's music now. And then, of course, Paul, Joe, and David, in no particular order. That's just how I type them, at the Lap of the Pods, our Queen podcast. Also, the band's manager, who also is the manager for Thin Lizzy and several other bands, Ace, his show, Ace on Music, is on Stitcher, and you can find it on YouTube. He also has a Patreon where you can get some behind the scenes, sort of what we do after the episode, footage or additional stuff. Content, that's the word I was looking for, content. So check that out. His show is great, really dives into the music industry, and has some amazing stories to tell. That guy has been around the world a few times. He has seen a lot of things, and he delivers the information very, very well. Got a great voice, and he could have really been in broadcasting too, just based on his voice alone. I don't know how well he reads aloud. Like, I'm not good at that, as you guys have probably heard, as I've read reviews and things. I'm not the greatest at reading aloud, but I don't have to do it that often, which is great. And if I really wanted to, I could edit it to make myself sound great, but there's really no need for that. Also, check out the website, gottahear'emall.com. You can also find them on Twitter. And our friend Allegra over there has a very well-researched website where she talks about concerts and events that have happened with the bands Deep Purple, as well as Emerson, Lake and Palmer / Emerson, Lake and Powell, and then tidbits on other bands here and there. But that is the main focus of her site. Very well researched, incredibly well organized. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad, because things have happened over the years that have not always been pleasant. But she reports on all of it, and I really like that. So check out those shows. You can reach us here at scotthaskin.com, and then click on Uriah Heep podcast link. You can find us on Facebook at Uriah Heep Podcast. Twitter, we are at Heep Podcast. Instagram at Uriah Heep Podcast. And of course, the email is uriahheeppodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to become a patron or donate through PayPal, on that main website, scotthaskin.com, Uriah Heep Podcast, go down to the bottom and there is a link for Patreon and PayPal. Thank you guys very much for all of those who have helped out with ratings, reviews, donations, just everything. Every little bit helps. And it really means a lot to me that what I'm doing means a lot to you. So thank you guys for all of that. Let's talk about the song Circle of Hands. For me, I've always loved this song. It's one that really is more based, I think, on feel for anything for me. Got some great chords, a great progression to it. It's powerful. It's laid back at the same time in different sections. There's just a lot of mood in the song. And that's one of the things that I've always loved about it. I mean, all the elements are there. It's a Uriah Heep song. It's when, the band was very tight, very cohesive, and just a great piece of music. And, I say we just dig in and start with the song itself and see where it goes. man, I just love the sound of that Hammond B3 right there. The Leslies are spinning, giving us a nice vibration, and it's got just a nice, meaty, powerful sound. But it's moody too, and I really like that. The amount of distortion on it is not so much that it's fuzzy; it gives it more of a grit to it, and I think that just works so beautifully. Being a big fan of Ken Hensley's sound and John Lord's sound, what they did with the Hammond is just amazing. Of course, John was playing a C3, Ken is playing a B3. And it's just an amazing, amazing musical instrument. I really love just the moodiness and the emotion of this opening. You don't really know where it's going to go. You just know that you're in for a journey here, and it's just so beautiful. Very nice the way the band kicked in there. Of course, Lee Kerslake was keeping time on the hi-hat from the very beginning, very gently in the background. Really like what Gary Thain is playing there. He's keeping it simple, but he's adding just a little bit of color to keep it moving forward. It's the tempo's a little more mild, but those little things can keep the groove going and just kind of keep pushing that song forward along the track. And then, of course, we've got guitars joining the keyboards there, and just really powerful. Really great. The one thing I really have to credit this band with is their taste in sound. They're not over the top in anything that they've done up to this point. It's very, very mild. The amount of distortion on both the guitar and the keyboard are not so heavy that they're overpowering each other or overpowering any of the other instruments. It's a very nice blend. The mixing on this album is fantastic. It's one of my favorite mixes of any album, actually, of all time. My absolute favorite mix would be Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche. I think that is just, to me, there is no flaw in that mix whatsoever. The blend is absolutely amazing. Just a beautifully mixed album. I have to say that the stuff Uriah Heep has done, up to this point, I've liked a mix here, I've not liked a mix there, but this album is just superb, and they get a pretty good sound going forward from here. And it's pretty consistent through the album too. So really good stuff. It makes it easy to enjoy the album as a cohesive thing instead of just saying, well, I like this song or not that song, because it all really feels like one complete project. Even though there was a different bass player on two of the songs, it still feels very, very complete and cohesive. So great stuff. And let's see where the song goes.
Circle of hands, cold spirits plan, searching my land for an enemy. Came across love's sweet cost, and in the face of beauty, evil was lost.
I love that the vocals there are as gentle as the keyboard is. And it's just right in that pocket of register for David Byron. It just sounds so perfect. And I love when he sings in that range. But just beautifully backed by the organ and the drums. And for those of you who are interested, go back and listen to that section, because there are a couple of audio artifacts in there. There's a couple of knocks and a little bit of buzz. But I like that because, not everything needs to be all clean and perfect all the time. It's human, it's real, it's what was recorded, and it sounds great. I don't remember hearing that stuff off of the other versions I have, but this is my first time listening to this particular deluxe CD remastered or remixed version. And obviously they left it in there or didn't notice it or whatever, but it's there. So if you want to have some fun picking those out, go right for it. But really, the music is so beautiful. It's really hard to hear anything that's taking away from that. It's just so easy to lock on to what's happening and enjoy every little bit that you hear.
sky full of eyes, minds full of lies, black from their cold hearts down to their graves, murder the dawn, spreading their scorn, cursing the sun of which love was born.
I love that little lick that Ken Hensley plays right before the vocals start. He's done that on the previous passage as well. It's a nice little lead in, something to change it up, add a little bit of color without being distracting to the song. Very tasteful. But what's interesting on this verse is the harmonies. They're much lower than we're used to coming from Uriah Heep. There is that one, that plays the complementary higher role, but even that is still lower than what we're used to hearing. So it's a different sound for them, and I think it adds to the moodiness of the song. Very nice touch, I have to say.
We must keep them away, or pretty soon we'll pay. Count the cost in sorrow, sacrifice, future has its price, and today's only yesterday's tomorrow.
What a powerful section right there. Just, the music being so powerful, but also, the bass is playing some really interesting stuff that's keeping it moving and keeping it from being too stagnant as far as the music goes, because everything else is very simple, supporting the vocal. And what a powerful line, count the cost in sorrow. I think it's a really, it's one of those lines that kind of paints a picture in your mind, doesn't it? For me, it, especially, nowadays with everything that's gone on in the last couple of years in the world, but really for ages, it's one of the things that we don't take stock of enough. We look at destruction, we look at it as, how much is this going to cost? How many people died, this and that, but we really don't necessarily think about what the emotional damage is, what the, the hurt is that we have to carry with us going forward when something happens. And I think it's a pretty amazing sentence right there. I like the whole part, but that sentence has always stuck with me. I've always just kind of looked at that and thought, that is something that has to be evaluated and taken stock of when things happen. So great line there. Nice, beautiful guitar solo on two guitars, one pan to each ear a little bit more. Really, really beautiful, very tasteful, just keeping with the emotion of the song. Again, not overplaying, not trying to stand out or be fancy, just, continuing the emotion that the song is evoking. And I really love that. Very, another great solo. Also, the bass is still keeping things moving and interesting, but again, somehow, as much as the bass is doing, it's not overpowering anything. I don't know if it's because of where it sits in the mix, if it's because it doesn't have that distortion on it, but for whatever reason or however they're doing it, it's just done very tastefully, where the bass is a little more felt than heard, and you can just feel that it's keeping you moving forward, but really the guitars are obviously the focus. The keyboards really drop down in volume in this section. You can hear them if you really pay attention, but it's one of those things where you really more feel it in that thickness of the backing sound to the guitar solo than anything else. And again, very tastefully done, just kind of repeating that opening, but adding the bass and doing the guitar solo over it. So very nice part to lead into the chorus again.
We must keep them away. pay and count the cost in sorrow. Sacrifice, the future has its price, and today is only yesterday's tomorrow.
I'm going to replay the end of that for you again, because there's something that's very interesting here in what they chose to do. Now, 999,999 out of a million bands would have done this differently, but we're talking about the one band that did it this way. And I really like it. I think it works very well. At the end of this part, as they transition into the next part, normally you would have the drummer, when they hit the kick drum, would hit a large crash, and it would carry out, the sound would carry out as this next part goes, and it makes for the transition. But that doesn't happen here. What happens here is you just hear a bass drum, no crash cymbal at all, and I really like that. I really like the fact that it doesn't have what's expected, what you would just, me naturally as a drummer, I would just hit that. But that's not what Lee Kerslake did, and I really like that he didn't. I think that's very powerful. I think that's more powerful than the crash would have been. So it's a different type of transition because of that, but it's a very nice one just the same. So I'm going to go back so you can hear how that played out into the next part.
And today is only yesterday's tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Absolutely adore that reverb wash and the way that they lowered the volume on the vocals until it sort of made you feel like he's just out of the existence of the song. Just like, my part's done and I'm going to fly away now. Really, really cool the way that was done, very tastefully. It's kind of subtle. It's really one of those things that you don't necessarily think about, but you feel it. And of course, I'm here to point it out so that you'll think about it too. But very, very cool. I like when they do that. And they've done that before. It was kind of a good trick to pull out again here, I think. Well, what a phenomenal buildup as that song fades off to the end. You've got going from the doubled guitar solo in the earlier part of the song to a single guitar starting in the left ear, then adding to the right ear, then doubling, and then you've got the piano coming in and joining, and then we had a little bit of a revisit from the vocals, which we thought were gone, because they flew off into the distance and then they came back for a second and stopped. But just a beautiful build as that goes on. So you've got, good solid bass and drums, just keeping things moving. You've got really beautifully played guitar and piano, really doing different things, but playing beautifully together. Just a masterwork to me. This is one of those songs that I think, honestly, could be studied in music classes for how to write songs and how to make the songs interesting and how to layer them and help them build a piece at a time. And I think people could learn a lot from this song as writers and as performers, but very beautifully done. I love the layers. I love the really high guitar in there. That there might be, I don't know if there's a synthesizer layered in there as well, but definitely a couple of different layers of guitar for sure. But it just blends so beautifully well together. And I this is one of those songs that as a listener I love, but as a musician I really appreciate as well, because I think dynamically the song was very well done. So that is Circle of Hands, you guys. Thank you for listening. And I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found some things in the song that maybe you hadn't noticed or heard before. I'm not talking about those audio artifacts in the second verse. I just mean in general, maybe a different way of looking at the song or something. But it's such a brilliant piece of work. And it feels like it was such a natural song, too. It doesn't feel like, oh, we threw this in there because we didn't know what else to do. I mean, it really feels like it's just well written and came from the moment and not something that was overthought too much. And I absolutely love songs like that. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you for joining me on the show. We will be back tomorrow with another song from Demons and Wizards. I'll let you guess which one it is. And if you're listening on Tuesday, you already know because it probably showed up in your podcast app. So thank you guys very much. One thing I would be curious about is I'd be very curious to know where you guys listen to the show. What app are you listening on? Are you listening on the website? Are you listening on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher? Where is it that you're connecting to the show? And also, have you subscribed to the podcast? And if not, why? Seems like you would. I like subscribing to things that I want to listen to because I can just go to, if I'm on Stitcher or if I'm on my Podbean app or whatever, I can just click on, my favorites, and then all of them are just right there and I can see what new shows there are. I've been pretty consistent with getting shows out on the same 4 days every week since that I've changed and started that format. So maybe you're just used to it and you just go to it. I don't know, but I'd be curious anyway. So, post a message on Twitter where the episode comes out or on the Facebook group, or, you can email me at uriahheeppodcast@gmail.com. I'd be curious to know, those statistics because I don't really know where all the episodes are listened to. I just get the, the sort of compiled stats. So let me know if you can and if you want to. If not, that's certainly fine too. The most important thing is that you're enjoying the show. So we will be back tomorrow. Thank you guys. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!